Hello, St. Mary Magdalene. Thanks for tuning in to another weekly video with me, Father Chris. First of all, happy Divine Mercy Weekend. What a beautiful, beautiful way to conclude the octave of Easter, this 8-day time lock where we're stuck on the Easter glory and the Easter resurrection, and just to celebrate with great joy. And in that spirit of great joy, I've got something amazing that I wanted to share with you. It can be a beautiful spark to our parish and give us another deeper glimpse into the beauty of the liturgy and help us to further turn our hearts towards the Lord through the Mass. That is, of course, I'm pleased to announce at this time, after many years of sacrificial giving and brainstorming and just working with logistics of all these different things, I'm pleased to announce that sometime this summer 2021, St. Mary Magdalene will be undergoing some sanctuary renovations. So we will be adding some additional beauty and dignity to our worship space. You can see I'm in the church now. And so that design, I'm pleased to reveal, I have it right here. I will come close to the camera for a little bit to share with you the design schematic. I will also put this into the video itself and make sure it's included in the weekly flock note. You can also pause this video, right, and take a look at this and enjoy it for yourself here. But again, this will also be on display this weekend at all the masses. So just from a logistical standpoint behind this started in 2017. Right, in 2017, in March of that year, we started our own capital campaign. And that capital campaign had two goals. One was the construction of a parish hall. The second was the renovation of our current building to make this building that we already have a permanent worship space once the hall is built. Unfortunately, right, despite our best efforts and the sacrificial giving that we have, the estimates and the projections of what the hall would cost was about $1 million beyond what we had. So rather than giving up, I went to a lot of the different bodies within the parish that advised me, that give me consultation, and said, hey, what can we do? Because obviously, we don't want to see 4 years go by and nothing happens. So this sanctuary renovation is the result of that. There were a couple other things that happened along the way. In 2019, we participated in the Diocese of Phoenix Together Let Us Go Forth campaign, a campaign that kicked back a portion of the monies raised to each individual parish. As part of that campaign, in laying out the vision, what I wanted to do to supplement our already ongoing campaign that began in 2017, one of our parishioners donated a large sum of money to add and to spark this sanctuary renovation and redesign. So that's how this came to be from a logistical standpoint. I want to say I'm not giving up on the hall. I am not giving up on it. I am still working to try to build a parish hall within our means, right? Because both of these projects, it's also very important that we don't take on additional debt, right? That we have these funds paid for right up front. And that unfortunately means sometimes that it takes a long time to fundraise and to get there. And we will get there, and it will be amazing, and it will be beautiful. So I am working on brainstorming additional ways to build the hall, to get it going, to have it meet the needs of our parish and where we're at. But in the meantime, this is already fully paid for. We have the money on hand. And so again, hopefully summer of this year, we can start construction on this and renovating our sanctuary space. With me today are Geoff and Ruth Stricklin, the artists that have helped me conceive this sanctuary plan, and it's the fruit of a lot of prayer and just good liturgical theology. And so I've invited them here to be a part of this video and explain, first of all, who they are and how they maybe came into the sacred art business in helping parishes restore sacred art and beauty to the liturgy. And then also just to help us understand a little bit what's the role of beauty in the liturgy and how does beauty help us enter into that sacrifice, and why are we focusing on the sanctuary first? So Geoff and Ruth, thanks so much for being here.
Well, hello everybody. Thanks for allowing us to be a part of this project. First and foremost, we're parishioners of St. Mary Magdalene. You might recognize us. We sing in the music program, and I've been a part of this parish for about 10 years. So we care very much about the mission here and the people here, and so we're gratified to be invited into this process. Professionally, we own and operate a liturgical arts studio called New Jerusalem Studios. And what we do is we produce large-scale sacred art for churches, and we provide liturgical consultation for renovations such as this, and new church buildings and so forth. I have a master's degree in liturgy from the Liturgical Institute in Magdalene, Illinois, and my wife is a sacred artist. So we're involved in a number of projects here in the Valley and also elsewhere, as far as Texas and Chicago and other places. So we're blessed to be able to contribute here. I think that...
Can you tell us real quick, like, what are a couple pieces of art around our parish that people have already seen?
Oh, you might be...
That they can attribute
sure,
to you?
Sure. Well, you might be familiar with some of our work. We helped Father Paul Sullivan in a renovation of Sacred Heart Parish in South Phoenix. My wife's beautiful painting, The Holy Family, which was done for the centennial of the Diocese of Phoenix and is associated with our bishop's letter called Complete My Joy. Is that right? So the Holy Family. Also the St. Joseph that you see here in our church, it's out of view right now, but St. Joseph the Worker is also a work that my wife did. And also the Newman Center. If you've been to the Newman Center here in Tempe, the beautiful mural work there is the handiwork of Ruth. And we've got big plans for the Newman Center, so that's just the beginning.
And the traveling St. Joseph icon as well is Ruth's design as well.
That's
so
right.
Lots of pieces that you're already familiar with. So, and as parishioners, so local business made a lot of sense.
That's right, yeah.
Help support this.
So what we want to do in this first video, there'll be others that will help with, to help provide more and more foundation and detail on the project at hand. But we just wanted to start with some sort of general principles that I think will best be described by a story of my wife becoming Catholic. So I want her to go ahead and tell that.
Yeah, I first came into the church in about 2010, and it was through an interesting process. Some of you may have heard me give talks here at St. Mary Magdalene and elsewhere, but basically I was working at a Catholic school as a non-Catholic. I was working in the theater department. I was painting sets and things like that. I have a little background in painting large-scale murals. And I was raised a Protestant and had come through the evangelical church. So I did have an active faith, but I had kind of plateaued in my faith a little bit. And I would usually start by explaining that the church I was raised in was a very practical church. I was raised in Alaska, so the churches up there were pretty simplistic and practical. Ours was a garage that had been renovated, and so it had very plain white walls and a simple cross at the front. And I noticed as a child that there was nothing for my active imagination to grab onto visually to show me what I was doing when we were worshiping. And that's something that really would impact me and impact my faith, because later, when I had graduated from high school, I had the opportunity to travel to Europe. And I went into my first Catholic cathedral in Toledo, Spain. And I remember walking through the doors and seeing these high arches just soar above me, and the light streaming through the stained glass, all different colors. And the altarpiece in the front was just heavily carved and gilded with gold. And it showed the angels and the saints in heaven, and God the Father, and of course the crucifix. I had never encountered anything like this before in my life, and I immediately felt a physical feeling that I needed to just fall on my knees and pray. But it was beyond physical. It was like I was being confronted with the reality of heaven in that moment. And it was so powerful that it was like God was revealing himself to me through the artwork. I wasn't engaging in a mass at the moment. I was just a Protestant on a tour. But it was the beauty that struck me so powerfully and made my heart rise up to heaven, and I was aware suddenly that I was in God's presence. That stayed with me, and many years later, I got a job in Phoenix working at Xavier College Preparatory, which is an all-girls Catholic school. And I was still Protestant. And as I said, I was in the theater department when the priest at the school asked me to paint an altar mural for the masses. So I started on this process of learning about what happens in a Catholic Mass. I read a little bit of the catechism, I studied, I met with the priest, we talked a lot about the theology, and I studied sacred art. I started looking at Catholic sacred art. And again, it started to have this effect on me, helping me to realize what was going on in the Mass, what was being offered to me, and how I was being drawn into the very heart of God every time the Mass took place. So eventually, just to make a really long story short, it was the beauty of the art that I was studying that was revealing the truth of the faith, and I was responding to it. So I eventually came into the Catholic Church. I became a Catholic through that process. And that has changed everything. I eventually went to study and studied specifically sacred art in the liturgy and the importance of that. So that is how we developed our business, and that's why we devote ourselves to this mission now.
Can I ask you to share what happened to you that first Mass when the mural was completed?
Yes, this is very dramatic, but it's if anyone has ever had anything like this happen, you know when God is moving. And so it was very simple in the moment, but so profound. At that first Mass, when we had hung the mural, and so I saw the heavenly reality of what was going on in the Mass depicted, even though I had painted it. I saw the glory of heaven and Christ in majesty and the angels and saints. And when the priest elevated the host and said the Eucharistic blessing, in that moment, for just a moment in my heart, in my spirit, I had a vision. And I saw the face of Christ in the host, and I also saw the same face in the priest. And I just knew God was trying to show me that this is my actual physical body, blood, soul, and divinity that is being offered to you. It's me. And that, in that moment,
Wow.
I knew I needed to receive the Eucharist.
Wow, what a
So,
powerful story. Thanks so
yeah.
much for sharing.
So this provides, I think, perhaps two sort of stakes in the ground for how we can understand church art and architecture, and why we would think about renovating a church that is good, it's functional, we celebrate the Mass here, Jesus shows up in the Eucharist, yeah, that's all true. But the church, according to our tradition, a church building and all the sacraments that flow from the life of the church are meant to be more than just functional, but they are what we call sacramental. So that's one principle that perhaps we can think about as we enter this process of renovation. The sacramental or the incarnational principle, right? It refers to the fact that the hidden God of the universe first becomes manifest or visible in creation in a way that we can, with the five senses, behold the glory of God in creation. And so that becomes the way that God continues to reveal himself in salvation history in a way that is perceptible to the subject, which is us, the human person. So God reveals himself in visible signs and symbols. In the Old Testament, you have the covenants, you have the Ten Commandments, the prophets, all of that. And then, of course, as you know, in the fullness of time, God takes on human flesh in Jesus Christ. And so in the visible person of Christ, who we can relate to because he's like us with five senses, a physical body, we see the person of God. And so in everything that Jesus says and does, God is revealed in physical form. And then, of course, at the end of his life, he gives us the Eucharist and says that it's in this sign that the fullness of my divinity will be present to you. And so from the Eucharist, right, flows the entire life of the church. So the Word of God and the Scripture, the lives of the saints, all the sacraments, these are all visible, tangible, sensible signs that reveal and make present God himself and his whole saving plan. So the first reason that we would focus on art and architecture is because it has power to reveal the hidden reality. Just like the bread reveals in sort of a veiled form the mystery of Christ. So a beautiful church reveals the reality of what we're celebrating. So that's what Ruth was describing when she went into that church in Toledo. She said intuitively, I mean, she had never learned sacramental theology, but she intuitively knew that she was in the presence of a vision of heaven. And then similarly with the mural at Xavier, when she saw the heavenly host behind her and the Eucharist raised, she realized that she was in the presence of what we would call the heavenly liturgy, with Christ present and all the angels and saints. And this is what our church gives us. The Second Vatican Council said that when we celebrate the Mass here on earth, it's like a foretaste of the real liturgy, which is being celebrated for all eternity in heaven. So one of the reasons we want to renovate and bring beautiful sacramental artwork and architectural distinction to a church is because it has the power to reveal what we're really celebrating, which is the glory of the Mass in heaven.
That's beautiful. Yeah, definitely to reveal the Lord.
So that's one thing. And the other concept you've heard spoken about, or you've heard mentioned many times, is this term beauty. And I think probably we might take another video to go into detail on this, but it's hard to understand the church's concept of beauty in our modern culture because we're all familiar with the famous axiom, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which means that everybody has different taste, everybody has different perspective, and so beauty is subjective. You know, it's up to the person's taste. But according to our rich theological tradition, beauty has always been understood to have an intimate connection with truth and with goodness, and these are seen as part of God's very nature, beauty, truth, and goodness. And beauty is defined as the visible, sensible radiance of the true and the good. So that should remind you of sacraments, right?
So does that mean that beauty is not just a matter of preference and taste, right? That it can be quantified and objectified and in a good way.
Yeah, now to some extent beauty is subjective, but within a church, when you're talking about sacramental art, that is an architecture that's happening with the purpose of the liturgy in mind, you are revealing the truths of our faith. So it is not so much about what do I like, what's popular right now. It's about what does our church teach, what is happening in the Mass, and how are we going to reveal that so people can actually tangibly receive it. And it's also about knowing, like, beauty is not so much in the eye of the beholder when you're talking about sacramental beauty. You're talking about beauty residing ultimately in the mind of God. He's the one who is the truth. He holds the truth. He tells us what the truth is. He shows us what goodness is. He is the ultimate source and standard. So if we know what beauty is in God's mind, not in the mind of God, not in the mind of the beholder, then that kind of puts us on the right track of how we can reveal that in the liturgy, in the art and architecture, in a sacred space like this.
That's beautiful to help us to think about that. Beauty reveals God and makes him known. And so that makes sense then to focus on the sanctuary and start from the source and summit of our faith, as the Catechism teaches, right? The tabernacle flow out from Jesus. I mean, automatically as you said that, I'm thinking Ezekiel in the Psalms where it talks about the water flowing from the temple and obviously the water flowing from the side of Christ, who is the Holy of Holies now, and everything flowing out from there.
It's the trysting place between heaven and earth. That happens every time we go to Mass. And seeing it helps us to realize it. If we are staring at a blank wall of concrete that reminds us of a parking garage, it's very hard.
She's not talking about
not
this
here.
church.
We worked on some other projects like this, but it's really helping to reveal the reality of heaven, because that is our hope. That is not only what we're participating with every time we go to Mass, but it's also our hope for eternity. So
that's beautiful. Thank you. That's a good challenge for us. I'll admit that's like thinking about that and going into this whole project, thinking about beauty in the liturgy and my taste, my preferences, my likes, this person's likes. It's like, well, no, what does the church say? What does God say? What does God reveal to us about himself? And this beautiful sacred art is a way of doing that. So certainly thank you so much for being a part of this video. I will one more time just hold this up real close to you so you all can see it, and pause on it and gaze with it and contemplate it. And certainly if there's some challenges to you in this video, don't dismiss them right away. Pray on them, pray with them, and certainly feel free to ask questions. We'll have someone available at all the masses this weekend as well that can help answer some questions about this, so you can come and see it up close and really delve into the detail. And like Geoff and Ruth have both said, we definitely do want to share with you, there's a lot happening in this beautiful image, and we want to unpack that rich symbolism in there, from the colors to the saints to the structure and the design. I mean, everything shows forth some meaning and radiates and manifests something about God. So there will be a lot to unpack, and so definitely we'll have some subsequent videos. But certainly thank you so much. Again, this is fully funded. We're ready to go. It's going to be a beautiful gift to our parish, where collectively as a parish we can more deeply and more perfectly enter into the sacred mysteries, right? The Holy Mass and the Eucharist, and just have that one additional tool to help our bodies engage and come closer to Christ in that way. So certainly thank you all thank you, Geoff and Ruth. It's been a great pleasure to work with you, and I look forward to our ongoing collaboration in the future. And I'll stop talking now and hold up the big, pretty picture so you all can take a look at it. Have a beautiful Divine Mercy Sunday. I will hold this up, and then the video will end with this image on the screen. So thank you all, and God bless.